All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading up to Arlington, Virginia to hang out with Lansing Veeder, the Director of Performance with Ignite Baseball. Lansing, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Dude, I am super excited for this call for you and for Ignite. This is, I don't know, I kind of have lost track, but we've done almost 100, or right by the time this comes out, we may have already surpassed 100 episodes. And a lot of those episodes, quite honestly, are with sort of like those nationally known perennial powers, right? Like it's the Bob Reichmans of the world from the Scorpions, right? It's those brands that that everybody across the country knows. And with no offense, Ignite is new to this thing, and so it's like I'm excited to sort of get like the perspective from some fresh eyes, kind of a newer crew out here. And while some of these clubs have put literally hundreds and hundreds of players into college, I want to congratulate you guys because this is the class of 2022, so next year's graduates, the current juniors. They're going through the recruiting process, and you told me before we hit record, you're first dude in the program that has ever committed to college, just committed. So boom, I'm fired up. I am pumped about that. And it's so cool. It's like, it's like 5 years from now, you'll be talking about our 100th guy who just committed to college. And so right now, today, we're talking about dude number one. So congrats on that, man. And here's what I want to do. I want to get to know you a little bit. So why don't I just get out of the way and talk about your baseball background. I know we have sort of some things in common, some coaches we've played for in common. So that's super cool. So tell us about yourself, and then tell us how you came to be at Ignite.
Again, thank you for having me on. And yeah, very exciting that we got our first, official cadet to commit. Obviously, we've had, a few others that train here playing for other teams, but to have that one wearing our brand and our colors just really means a lot. So it's been awesome. But basically, my little bit of my background is, born and raised in Northern Virginia, grew up in Falls Church, Virginia, went to Paul VI High School. And after that, I continued on to St. Joe's. Every step along the way, I just had a really good experience with, people that made an impact on me, whether that be on the field or off the field. From a young age, obviously I was in the backyard. Hey, 3-2 count, World Series, here's my opportunity. But at the end of the day, I knew that I would have an opportunity to coach, and that's where I'd have some of my biggest impacts would be as a coach. So I really took the time every step of the way to listen to how coaches spoke, to how did they guide players, how were my conversations in the locker room after a tough game, after a good game, and having some of those guys like a Jeff Nolan, a Tony Salgado, our head coach at the time, Coach Billy Emerson, those guys, as well as Tad Davidovich at the high school level, really made a big impact in my overall growth and development. And then once I got to St. Joe's, Skipper, Fritz Hamburg, me and him, we had a really good relationship to this day, and just how much he cares about, each and every single player. And then, the staff that he was able to put together between Ryan Wheeler and, Kyle Werman was there for a little bit as well, and Matt Allison. I mean, I really, I'm sorry if I left any coaches out that may listen to this, but those guys really made a big impact, and I think that's the thing that drove me the most to get into coaching, because right out of college, I went and tried to put on a suit and tie and worked in the finance world, and it was fun. It was good. I felt like I was helping people as best I could. But my passion really was extending player careers to, how did they perceive the game of baseball? And a lot of people say it's, a little bit of a dying sport, or that people just aren't as into it. And I wanted to change that. And I think that's what motivates me the most, is whether I can get you to college or not. I just want you to leave, once you hang up your cleats, to really love the game, to go back and coach if that's something you want to do, or play in a men's league like I do, and just really have that passion for the game to keep it growing and to keep it building. And while I was doing the consistent travel ball talk, while I was playing, I played for the Canes for a couple of years, and Jeff Petty, and he really had a big impact on me as well. The people that he was able to put onto our rosters and what I learned from them. And I really appreciate a lot of things that he did for me as a player, and how he has impacted me in my coaching world as well. And, one of the coaches that I played for after the Canes, I went to the Stars program. I was one of the first members of what is now the Stars program here in Northern Virginia as well, where I played for Carson Carroll. And, for Coach Carroll, I mean, you're not going to find a more passionate coach about each and every player, and how he, tries to get guys to where they need to be. So, I mean, I owe a lot to him, but honestly, at the end of the day, and I know it sounds cliche, but, I got to definitely give a shout out to my dad. He coached me all the way through Little League, and he received an award when we were 12 for DC Metro Coach of the Year. And that's a guy who I really look up to, not only because he's my father, but he played college lacrosse. He wasn't really a baseball guy. He loved the game of baseball, but his high school didn't have it, so he picked up a lacrosse stick, took that to college. But for him to find a way to motivate players at a young age, from our all-star teams to our travel teams, and then to myself. I mean, when I was on the field, I very rarely, and if I flipped up and called him dad, it was a mistake, but he had an expectation like, hey, while we're here, I'm your coach, and I'm going to treat you just like every other player. So, I sat the bench when it was my turn to sit the bench. I played outfield when it was my turn to play outfield. And, all these coaches have really shaped the way that I have grown into a coach and into an instructor. And, it all kind of started with my dad building that passion for me.
Well, I appreciate you listing off those guys, and you listed some good people. It's kind of interesting. You're one of the younger guys we've had on here, and so it's kind of cool that you have essentially you went through a very similar travel ball experience to what the kids today are, compared to myself at 42. This version of travel baseball wasn't really a thing. So you got to experience it as a player just a few years ago, and quite honestly played for two of the premier organizations out there, that both happen to be right here in Virginia. And now here you are, kind of helping get one going. You got your first guy committed, class of 22 grad. You never had a grad class before. So those of you guys who are listening are like, why didn't they have any guys sign before? They didn't have a class of seniors come through, and actually there's still no seniors in this organization. So they're all 22. So tell us about Ignite. Owner founder Kurt Hughes got it going. I don't know anything about Kurt. Never met him. So give us his how he got Ignite going, and how you came to leave the finance world, throw those ties away, and hook on with him to help him run Ignite.
Yeah. So Kurt played, I believe, at DeSales in college.
Both of you guys so both of you guys played in Pennsylvania.
I believe so. I might have that wrong. We'd have to double check with him. I know his link's in our bio. I know he was at two different colleges, Castleton State as well as DeSales. But Kurt right out of college, he's a biochemist background. He worked with the FDA, and then he just kind of woke up one day and said, you know what, I really have a passion for baseball, and I feel like there's a need for a hitting instructor that may view the world a little bit different And, he started the company about 5-6 years ago. And, while he was doing that, I was kind of migrating out of the finance world a little bit. I still did it, kind of ad hoc here and there. But I worked for a couple different facilities in the area that, again, just every step of the way, I've had a lot of good people on my side and that I got to work for and work alongside. That kind of, overall built my passion and wanting to learn more. But at the end of the day, what is the American dream? And for me, it was having the freedom of owning a business. It was having the freedom of, being able to set my own schedules and doing things the way that I believe to be right. And, when I decided to join on with Kurt about 2 years ago, we found that we just had a lot of things in common. We were guys that, locally were very talented, very, held to a very high standard for our respective areas. But in many ways, both of us felt like we fell short in, some of our accomplishments. And playing at St. Joe's trust me, playing Division I baseball at a program that's run by Fritz Hamburg at St. Joe's is second to none, in my opinion. He's just got a really good staff there, and he's got a great program going. But in many ways, I felt like on a personal level, I fell short, and I wanted to know why. Why was that happening, or why did I not perform in many of the ways that I thought I could? And a lot of things that we do now is we try to find those answers, whether it be because there are movement deficiencies, whether it be there are just overall philosophy deficiencies in the game and things like that. And we kind of try to push the limits in trying to figure out how do we get the most out of each player. And when, Kurt and I sat and had our conversations, it really just led me to a person that has a lot of the same ideals that I do, has the same philosophies that I do, and also we both challenge each other. He has taught me enormous amounts about the human body and the way that it's meant to move and things like that. And I've been able to push his elements on how we incorporate our training and our coaching to prepare these guys for their respective levels of baseball and beyond. So it's been an amazing ride. It's been an amazing opportunity to have someone like Kurt and like the team that we have here. I mean, the coaching staff that we have in the facility on the field. I'm just very proud of them. I really feel like we're building something that is truly special because overall the cadets program has been around actually for about 14 years or so, started by Aaron Tarr. And it really started out as just a middle school program. You give kids a place to play, and you can call it was a pseudo feeder program for Marshall and things like that. And then once I got into the program, first off as an assistant coach, I just kind of ran with it. I was like, man, I really want to do this. I have a really big passion for it. And about 3 years ago or so, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do this. I think I really can accomplish this. So that's when, I started talking about, all right, what about a showcase program? What does that look like? And things like that. And it's really been these last 2 years where we have grown it to a point where, we have a system in place, and getting that first commit is a nice little weight off my shoulders, but I know my job's not done. I want all these kids to find a place to play because, again, all we're looking for is, 4 more years or 1 more year or whatever it is. We just want to continue to play, as they say in Moneyball, playing the child's game.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys were listening carefully, he dropped a name in there. The guy who started the cadets program, the original cadets program, was Aaron Tarr. If you don't recognize that name, he's the assistant coach over at Mount St. Mary's, new assistant coach because that staff turned over. Coach Frank Leone is the new head coach at Mount St. Mary's, and Coach Tarr has been brought on as one of his assistants. So that's pretty cool to have that guy, current Division I coach, kicking around the facility from time to time. That's awesome. So, you know, the sort of the standard lately with guests has been to, you know, go down a list of these 5 regular questions and see where that takes us. For me, it's been truly, you know, pretty interesting. Just what we've been able to kind of, you know, the topics we've dove into just off of these 5 same questions. So let's give them a try and see where it goes. So here's sort of the warm up. Put the ball in the tee for you and see what you can do. Is what book or movie or website would you recommend to coaches out there? What should they be? What do you think they should be learning from?
So for me, I hope I'm not taking too much of your time because I actually have 2 books.
Dude, we got plenty of time. There's no rush here. Talk to me. What books are we talking about here?
I have two books that I really have made an impact on my life, and then 1 movie. So the first book is The Mental Game of Baseball. That one changed my life as a player. I really struggled as a 16-year-old sophomore. Came off a really good freshman campaign, playing with a nationally ranked varsity program as a freshman, and I felt like I had to, you know, be more than what I was. And Billy Emerson is the one who recommended the book for me, and I recommend it to almost every player that I see dealing with any sort of, you know, mental part.
That's the one by, I just pulled it up. That's the one by Dorfman.
Yes.
Got it. Mental Game of Baseball Guide to Peak Performance by H.A. Dorfman.
Yeah, so he when I read that book, like I said, it changed my life. And with these kids, between social media, between the things that they're dealing with in school, out of school, the pressures of trying to get to college, not only on the baseball field, but just getting to college in general and making the right decisions, they have a lot going on. So I'd recommend almost every coach seeing a player dealing with those things to recommend that book. And the biggest thing is when these kids get this book, I highly recommend do not get the online version. Get a hard copy and make notes in it, highlight it.
Good advice. This book looks like it came out in 2002. Does it hold up in 2022?
100% in my opinion.
Awesome.
One of the chapters that really impacted me, and it's honestly one of the ways that I try to talk to players, is visualization. When you can visualize success, and it can be as simple as visualizing getting a bunt down, that I had dove so deep into that when I was in the on-deck circle, I'd watch the pitcher throw 1 pitch, and from there I could almost feel like when I took my drive swings, like the ball was making contact with my bat. I mean, it had changed the way that I just felt connected to my body as a player.
That's awesome.
So that's a game I'd recommend for every coach to recommend to all their players, but especially the ones that are dealing with things that are hindering their play based on how they are mentally.
What's the other one?
The next one is Run to the Roar. This one was recommended to us, and we actually did it as a team at St. Joe's. Fritz Hamburg had told us, like, hey, pair up into different groups. So each group had to read a certain chapter and then present on that chapter. And without giving the whole story away, it's actually about a squash coach up at Trinity. And I might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it's still the case. I believe squash at Trinity is the only sport they compete in at the Division I level. I believe the rest is at the Division III level. But basically the moral of the story is when you're running to the roar, like a lion's roar, when you're faced with adversity, when you're faced with a task that you are not comfortable with, are you going to go in the other direction, or are you going to face it head on and, embrace the challenge and fight through that challenge and see where you come through on the other side of it. So that is a great book for coaches looking for ways to motivate their players, and coaches that are, maybe new to, this experience of coaching, whether it's, a Little League team or a showcase team. it's a daunting task when you start it. And this really helped me just understanding facing adversity, because I, did have to face a lot of adversity from injuries to how things I was dealing with outside of baseball as well. So that book had a major impact, and I was glad I was given the opportunity to read it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even known about it had, the St. Joe's program had brought that up to me. And then really the last one is a movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. Sorry that two of the examples I'm giving aren't.
No worries, all good.
But the last one is Coach Carter, the basketball movie with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes, good one.
That one has impacted me big time, because I think what's often, forgotten in all this is the impact we have as coaches on the community, on making sure that we are not only building better athletes, but are we building people that are going to become assets to society, people that are going to care about giving back, guys that are going to care about how can I make an impact today, not only in my own home, but with the people around me. And from that movie, I really, have taken a lot of things that don't have to deal with sport itself, but then also one of the favorite things and, one of the biggest impacts that it had on me as a coach on the field is, the first few practices they had, all they did was run. And then he said, "Hey, coach, we haven't put in any plays." "Yeah, what do? We run. So let's run." And that's one of the things that I try to talk about with our program is I want our guys to play fast, to attack the game, to put pressure on the defenses when they're on the field. And, even if we may not in a game call a bunt or call a hit and run, I want these guys to play the game and use their tools. If you've got some speed, you want to lay a bunt down because the guy's back, take it. If you've got a read on the pitcher and you want to take a base, take it. Attack the game and embrace putting pressure on the other team.
That's awesome. Great. That's a kind of a throwback there. I hadn't heard anybody mention that in a while. So I appreciate you bringing that one up. That's a classic.
Mm-hmm.
You've kind of been working through some of this stuff a little bit. So I think these next two questions are going to be hopefully pretty interesting. Will lead to some good discussion here. What's a piece of advice that you would give someone who's just starting out a travel organization or even a facility? You guys are sort of on the front edge of this stuff yourself. So, but can you look back just 6 or 12 or 18 or 24 months and say, daggone it, man, we should have done a little bit something different, or, hey, we nailed this part. Like what is the advice that you would give somebody who's just a little bit behind y'all and just starting out?
Patience. Patience
That's very
is
good.
Key. Just because, when you see yourself starting something and, like I said, a lot of these tasks, they're daunting. They can get a little bit scary and be a little bit intimidated at times, but you just have to be patient. And that's one thing that I've learned over these last few years, because I see these other programs, they're committing guys here, committing guys there, and all these different things. And luckily we have, Aaron Tarr as part of our organization when it comes to the facility. And I have conversations with him all the time, and he just keeps saying, "Hey man, you just kind of started this. You need to be patient. You need to realize it's going to take time. It's going to take time for the program to get its name out there. It's going to take time for people to, truly trust in your process." And what we have right now is we have a group of people who are bought in, who have trusted our words, even if, the list of commits doesn't quite show it just yet, but we actually got more coming down the road in these next couple months. But it's patience. Keep fighting keep fighting alongside the kid and pushing him and making sure that, he's getting, your guidance, because at the end of the day, that's what these guys are looking for. They're facing a scary process. Continue to just coach the player, continue to be that mentor that they can look up to. And at the end of the day, I just believe that when you can do those things, you're going to have a bigger impact than just the commitment list. And when I really realized that in this last year is when our players really started to get the most attention. When I really just focused, it's not about the list of commits that we have. It's about getting these players better and, being that mentor, as I mentioned. And since we've done that, I think that's when we've taken our biggest steps as an organization.
That's great advice. Very good. Patience. So if I handed you the magic wand, what one change do you think you could make to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact right now? And I'm looking forward to hearing your answer for someone who's sort of newer to this world. Although you were in this sort of this version of travel baseball as a player, and now as a coach. So you get the magic wand, man. What do we do?
One of the things that I would do, hands down, is to get players to play with their grade as much as possible, as early as possible. I think too many times players are strapped to this idea of, oh, well, my league age says this, so this is the level I should be playing. And what I'm finding is that just doesn't work, because once you get to high school baseball, if you're talented enough and you're a 15-year-old kid, yes, you might be talented enough to be on a varsity team, but that 18-year-old is committed to whatever school throwing 92 miles an hour. And if you haven't seen anything remotely close to that, you're going to get blown up. And who knows what can happen, as I mentioned, with the mental impacts of the game. Who knows what can happen to a kid if he's truly not prepared. So one of the biggest things that I try to talk to families about is let your kids play with their grade at minimum. When I started with one of our travel teams as a player, we were the Mavericks baseball program, started by my father, as well as another coach, Jeff Willis, who actually became kind of our head recruiting coordinator when I was with the Stars.
I haven't heard that name in a long time. I don't mean to interrupt, but boy, that was kind of a blast from the past there.
Yeah, he had a massive impact, and Luke and I are still very close friends. He was in my wedding, and that family. I mean, Luke's like a brother to me. Jeff was like a father to me in many ways. My dad and him really made an impact on a lot of these players that we had in the program. But when we were 14 and 15. Yeah, when we went to tournaments, there may be a time here and there where we're playing, with our age group for whatever reason. We're playing, okay, we're a 14 team, we're 8th graders, we're playing as 8th graders. But when we were local, hey, can we get a game against a 16U team? When we're 15, can we get a game against 18U teams? And we just kept pushing the element, because our goal was, even if we don't put up the W today, can I have an opportunity to watch the other shortstop, the other center fielder, the other catcher? How are they moving their feet? Why are they so much faster? Is it just because they're more mature and stronger, or are they doing something different that I'm not? And I think when we really push that on our players, don't focus on that W all the time. I want you to compete. I want you to try to win the game. But are you watching the other player? Why is that player doing something that looks better, that is faster than you? Is he moving his feet a certain way? Were you crossing your feet behind, but he's crossing his feet in front? Just something random. And then also just listening to another coach. Generally, when you play against an older team, you're probably going to have a coach that might be a little bit more experienced, whether it's on the playing side or the coaching side. Maybe he's just been coaching for years and understands the game. Like, what is he telling his players? For example, I wish I remember the team that we were playing, but we were in a wood bat tournament, and we ended up tying the game in pool play 1-1. But overall, his team just was putting more barrels on the ball. And one of the things that he said was, hey, keep your top hand strong. And it's just one of those coaching cues out there that I had never really used before. And then I started thinking about it, and I came back to the facility and took a couple swings on my own. And I was like, man, this really feels different when I truly keep my top hand strong when I'm using a wood bat versus a metal bat. And ever since I sort of, essentially stole that cue from him and said it to our players, it's almost like when we go out with a wood bat, there's not much difference in our overall production. We might not run the ball out of the yard as much as, we sometimes do with the metal bat, but we're still hitting our extra base hits. We're still barreling the ball where, instead of a 3-hopper that might find a hole, it's a 2-hopper where don't even move, it's already by you. So playing against these older teams and playing against the competition where you have players moving a certain way and coaches speaking a certain way, I think that has an overall impact in all this. And that's why I try to have our guys at the very minimum play with their grade. And if they're not playing with their grade, I want them playing above their grade. So even on my 2022 team, I've got a couple 23s. On my 23s, I've got a couple 24s because their talent level allows them to compete at that level. But I need to be able to show them, like, hey, this is the guy that could be ahead of you at the college you want to go to. What's he doing now? How can you surpass him when you get on campus with him? You have to compete with him for a spot. Are you, just going to continue to live in his shadow, or are you going to be able to push yourself beyond him when you get there?
It seems like it should be totally intuitive stuff. But I'm so glad you brought this up because we do see way too many kids, especially there's sort of that tweener age. Like you're not seeing a lot. I don't see a lot of the necessarily like the juniors and seniors doing it, but you're seeing a lot of the freshmen and sophomore. Not a lot, but where you see those players playing back is sort of in that transitional period. So I'm glad you brought this up. I think it's really important. Play your grade or up. So you're playing against your competition or even tougher competition. Don't play back if your birthday allows, just because your birthday allows. Don't do that. That's a bad practice, and it's not gonna make you better. That seems to work. People may be like that at the 12U level, but once you're getting up here in the high school with the big boys, that's it's not the approach. This has been great, Lance. I appreciate you coming on. I've enjoyed getting to know you a little bit. It was cool to find out we both got to play for Wheels. Wheels is a great dude, and it sounds like you got to play with Worm. I know Worm. So you and I have. Sounds like a bunch of friends in common, man. So we're gonna have to keep in touch, and let me hit stop on this, but don't hang up, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
No, like I said, this is an awesome opportunity. I'd love just talking baseball with guys that, you're doing this because you care about making an impact out there. So I'm always going to be alongside those guys. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Bingo. We're going to keep this conversation going, but it'll be the non-recorded, non-public part of the conversation. Hang on one second.